139. Are you ready to move in with your muse? As Deborah and I were talking this morning, we wondered, does your muse live in a different city? Does she sometimes go underground and go on vacation and leave you in the lurch? And are you really ready? And am I ready to move beyond any of my stuckness, inertia, grumpiness, inadequacy, etc., etc., etc.? So I'm Kathleen Wiley, a Jungian psychoanalyst in North Carolina, and I am here with Deborah Henson-Conant, a composer, a mentor, a coach. We both play the harp, and that's why we call this Jung at Harp. I might add, Deborah is a Grammy-nominated harpist composer.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we come together every week with a question. We don't have answers, but we have a question that we feel is pertinent to our life and hopefully to your life, and we have a conversation to see what might emerge between us that enlightens us. And we would love for you to join in with your comments and whatever platform you're on. Hopefully you can share your comments and we'll be able to see them live, or if you're watching the recording afterwards. So DHC, the
Yeah, I
muse.
mean, I wanted to say something because I think that how you set this up, saying we don't come with answers, we come with a question. The question is what opens things up, and we don't come to find the answer, but to explore through the question. And
Yeah.
this is really the art of exploration through conversation. And it's how Kathleen and I first came to know each other, that we discovered that it's something that we both love to do. And Kathleen is a Jungian psychoanalyst, so it's literally part of your work. And I am a composer and a performer and a coach, creativity coach, and it's part of what I do too. It's not about coming up with the answers for people, but looking for knowing how to discover. And so you were talking, Kathleen, about that you had some stress. And you
Mhm.
came home and you came to your harp. And by the way, that is a harp in the back. You're seeing the column in the back of Kathleen. And what
There
I'm
you go.
doing right now, right? And what I'm doing right now is I'm changing the tuning of my harp so that I can approximate what I think Kathleen said that she was doing. And so I've now put my harp into the key of C. It was in a different key before. I'll go back and show you that other key, which was the angel mode. But anyway, what Kathleen was doing, what came to her harp, and she said, I found the first inversion of the A chord. So the A was on top, and I was playing three notes, just three notes. And then, then I started playing with that, and you started playing, going up, maybe up the harp, like that. And I'm thinking maybe you played with spinning a melody off the top. So I'm thinking that you took these three notes and you started playing with them. You started moving them around as if they were three little blocks, as if you were a kid. There were three blocks and you started playing with them. And then you started experiencing a resonance. And this is within the context of like, are you ready to move in with your muse? Like, are you looking outside your muse? Are you looking for, I guess I'm thinking, are you looking to social media for your muse? Are you looking to other people to tell you what you think artistry is and what you should be moved by? What I'm really taken with of what Kathleen did is you went to something you have, a tool, an instrument, a simple instrument. The harp is simple because it's transparent. It is literally transparent. There's only these 7 strings each octave. You found 3 of the notes that resonated with how you were feeling. And then you created a micro practice. You created a practice in the moment of playing them, listening to them, and seeing what they are saying to you.
Right. Yeah.
So playing them, listening, and actually experiencing what are they saying to you. And that is the experience of engaging with a muse. What is this saying to you? And then you start being able to have a conversation and a dance with it and follow it into the experience of creativity. And it doesn't, sorry, I know you.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, it doesn't matter what your technical level of ability is. It has to do with allowing permission to have a peak musical experience, because you had a peak musical experience, one that allowed you to connect with yourself more deeply, right?
Yeah. I mean, so I'm thinking about how the muses are the patrons of the arts and daughters of Zeus and one of his many consorts. And I'm not going to try to say her name because I'll say it with Southern phonetics and it won't be right. But anyway, you can look it
Well,
up on
now I really
Wikipedia.
want to hear it. What is it?
um, so part of what I think when we're meeting our muse, we're talking about meeting an energy that's larger than the ego, and from a Jungian perspective, we might talk about that energy as an archetypal energy. It's an energy that is bigger than consciousness. It's not accessible through consciousness, but it's accessible only through the unconscious. And so having a vehicle, although that's such a mundane word to refer to the harp as a vehicle, but for
But
this
it is
moment,
because it can take you from some
yeah,
place to some other place.
yeah. And so for me last night, because we had a pretty stressful 48 hours for a variety of reasons, I was so tired. But I made a commitment to get my hands on my harp 5 days a week. And so I thought, I'm just going to sit down and I'm just going to play whatever feels right. And I've been also doing some preview work for your vision challenge that starts next week. Now I understand why I couldn't ever get daily videos. It doesn't open until next week. I kept going there thinking, where are they? I was eager. And, but I was working with some of the past, what you did have there is kind of the past Q&As and what you demonstrated. And, as I sat down and I started doing that, then I thought, you know what, I'm just going to see what sounds good to my ear. And I just was tuning in to what did resonate for me at a deep level. And I think of that as a way of like the muse was at work in the background, that there was some energy in me that wanted me to connect more to the largesse of me, let go of the things that had happened over the last, 36 hours that had, gotten me off track of what my idea of the day was going to be. And to just really sink more deeply into a connection with myself. And I think that the muses and the arts throughout the ages have done that for people. That the arts, whether it's poetry or it's music or it's great works of art or sculpture or movement, um, it invites us to move into the largesse of who we are instead of staying caught in any one affect or mindset or energy field, whatever we want to call it.
I love so much of what I'm hearing you say, and I'm hearing that the arts, there is high art, or there is the arts that an artist will create that we can be inspired by,
Mhm.
and yet I notice that there can also be that level of artistry can imply that we should not engage in it ourselves,
Mm,
certainly should not share it unless it has that level of artistry and complexity.
right.
And I feel like my life is, I'm lucky enough to have these two or three sides of it. The two sides of creating works that are whatever complexity I want them to, and I've been doing it my whole life. So if I create a musical like The Golden Cage,
Mhm.
it's pretty complex. And then at the same time, I'm teaching the most fundamental. So on Sunday, it's Meet Your Muse is a free webinar. Oh, and I want to pull that up so you guys can get to it. Anyone can come to this. So this is on Sunday. So go ahead and there's a QR code. You can just grab that. It's a kickoff for a whole
Mhm.
week of a workshop or a challenge that's called the 5-day creativity challenge. So I'm going to pull that up in a separate. So this is, I have both of them. Check it
Mhm.
out. I got technology. So these two things are happening. First, Meet Your Muse, which is the kickoff. You can click this. And if you can't click it, you can go get it in the post that comes along with this video. And then also it goes to a five-day challenge. And in this 5-day challenge, what I set out to do was have people be able to connect with these parts of their muse, and also teach what I call vision music, which is
Mm-hmm.
music that what I said to myself is, how can I create 5 movements that are so simple that people could learn each one in 30 seconds?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And yet that it would give me and anybody access to something larger than themselves, just like you did. So last night you found this. That was the beginning. And if you start then applying the principles of creativity, you can come back, you can move it around, you can do all
Mm-hmm.
kinds of things. So I came up with 5 different things, almost as simple as that. The first one is 3 notes, just like you had 3 notes, but with a different harmony and a changing harmony. So
Right.
now there's emotionality. The second movement is, it's those 5 notes, which are all the white strings. Oh, this is what you were looking for. And then the movement there is, it's kind of going back and forth between these notes. And when I'm saying this, this is the beginning idea that you start with, knowing it's okay to keep going off and keep going off. And the beauty of this one, you go back and forth, but eventually you go down to this one. And suddenly all the notes of the harp are opened up. So it's just an experience. Explore. How might you do that with or without rhythm? The oscillation of a harmony, that's a fundamental principle of music. And then the moment where it all opens up because of a harmony that opens up.
Mm-hmm.
So that's it. You will learn. I mean, if you're in the challenge, you learn that in a minute, or you learn. But then it's all about exploring it, and it's all about knowing, or one, knowing that you have the right. You have the right at any level of technical ability to explore that and have a peak musical experience with it. What am I talking about? I feel like I feel like I was like, yes, Kathleen, and now I want to talk about that, and then I'm off on a tangent. But I feel like this goes back to this question, and it goes back to exactly what you automatically did. First of all, you went to find the challenge stuff, and it wasn't there.
Right.
But it doesn't matter. You
Right.
you looked at what was there, and then you took that idea and you created your own.
Right.
Your own. This is 3 notes that I created with this. You created your own. This is what resonated for you at that moment. You didn't even need me to do it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, but one of the things that you do, and I think this is a lot of what you offer and all that you share, is that there's a way you're an outer world catalyst for the inner muse. And I do think, we can serve that role for one another. And, so knowing that I can sit down and just start with a snippet, I don't have, because you've said, here's a snippet,
Right.
and then I can see what movement comes with me organically, because this was another title we played with for today's episode, was moving with the muse.
Right.
Because when I think about music, I immediately think about movement. And last night when I sat down at my harp, so tired, I didn't sit down at all with an agenda to have an intense practice, or finish learning the next phrase on this tune I'm working on, or even practice technique. I really sit down with the intention of, I just want to move through this heavy feeling that's accumulated. And I trusted that the harp would help me do that. And indeed it did. And so I think there's something about the muses and music and all of the arts that help us move through energetic states that are why we're naturally drawn. Kids naturally sing and dance. They naturally draw. Little ones it naturally do that. It's once we get shamed, we quit doing it.
I'm going to pull up this comment. I really love this, and I also would love you to read. Well, let's do this first. Some of the things that you found. So, Jane is saying, listening to your conversation and the tuning of your harp and the simple note sequence. The simple note sequence, I love this, gives me the gift of my approach to my playing for the Labyrinth meditation walk on this coming Monday. Simple and open to creativity. Beautiful. And that is exactly what I want to do. That's my commitment this whole quarter. The quarter is the Creative Resonance Project. And it starts with this Meet Your Muse. It goes into the Vision Music, the Vision to Action Challenge, which is just a 5-day way to explore this. And then from there, it goes into the 10-week Creative Resonance Project, all, just deeper and deeper levels of how to do this and how to do exactly the commitment that you took last night, Kathleen, and that you went in with the trust in this tool.
Yeah.
And what I also love that you said about children, this is one tool you can take, and I love what Jane said, 3-note sequence, the idea of a sequence. So when I look at this, I think it is reaching out and pulling back. It's reaching up and coming down. That's what the movement is. And of course you can turn it around. Anything, you can always do the opposite. So that means you can go down and then come back up. And we can experiment with that certainly in our bodies. And then what I'm curious about this quarter is, how can we then take that idea? So Jane said this simplicity of breaking it down opened it up to other things that she can do. And you said the word, and you said the word archetype, which means to me, this is a kind of an archetype. It's an archetype of a kind of movement. I'm just making that up. I don't know. Take the conversation back.
Yeah, I do think that music and the muse do have at its core, based on what the etymology was showing me this morning. The root mu is a Greek vowel, but mu also in Japanese means nothingness, neither yes nor no. And I'm thinking about how I'm often saying to the people that I work with in my embodiment circle and one-on-one, emotions just are. They're neither, our affects neither good nor bad, right nor wrong. It just is. Psychic energy is just neutral. And this idea of mu is as neither yes nor no, it just is. And when we can allow ourselves to move through the energy, we realize that the nothingness is, it doesn't have to stay stuck in form and get caught in my cellular consciousness, because we do know that tension states will take shape in patterns of muscular tension that then can catch one's psychic energy in certain patterns, personality character structures that aren't helpful to how we move in the world. So this idea of moving into nothingness, which means for me at this moment, moving into the flow that is everything, but that is nothing solid or static. And that's part of what I believe that the arts do. And it allows us to get into that flow of who we are, right? When people talk about meeting their muse, what ultimately they want on some level is to be in the flow of their own creativity. Right? That's how we want the muse to inspire us, to help us keep moving. So there's something about that valuing of the flow. Just like with the labyrinth, I was thinking how, you go into the labyrinth letting go. And I'm thinking of some of the, like the Phrygian mode would be appropriate for letting go of some things that don't want to go,
Is that this one? Is that it?
I forget. Maybe it's Locrian I'm thinking about. It's the one that's kind of the sci-fi. It's not the seventh. I forget. The Phrygian's the third. Is Locrian the seven?
I forget.
We forget. I forget.
Right.
But nonetheless, we could find it on the harp. I guarantee you.
Right. That's right. Right.
but the whole point, I think, what I was thinking about is that, the labyrinth is such a beautiful metaphor. And we have that process of walking into the labyrinth,
Mm.
which is about letting go of all those things that block us from the flow, going into the center and standing in the center and receiving from that still small voice inside, and then carrying that back out into the world. And it's a movement, it is the music of the universe, in a sense, of spirit flowing in through us. And so if
Wow.
we bring that to our practices, whether it's our embodiment practices or our practice at our heart, or whatever we're doing, our daily work, that how do we let ourselves move through? Okay, I'm moving toward the center point of connection in this activity, whatever I'm doing, experiencing. So I'm letting go of these things. Now I'm really listening to receive, and then I'm moving back out into my action with that in a different way.
Yeah. Um, as you were speaking, I was thinking so many things. I was thinking that the harp is, in a sense, like a labyrinth in terms of what you
Mm.
were saying. You step into it, something comes into your heart, and then you bring that out. You
Mm-hmm.
step in, you find the sound that you want, that you like. You play with it, you bring it out, and now you're sharing it. And
Mm-hmm.
as you share it, now Jane is having an idea, and then I'm having an idea. That it becomes a seed
Right.
for other things, that sharing. As you were speaking and you were talking about, well, little children, they're singing and dancing, and I was like, oh my God, all the arts are just everything we do naturally, but then put in stone, literally. And so it both represents our freedom and our self-expression, and it also represents, I have to do it like that. And so what I have as the beginning of this year, as all our, whatever our New Year's resolutions may be, but our New Year, our practices to actually, and this is what I want to give this first 3 months of the year, to have that connection to the the
Mm-hmm.
fundamental experience of playing. These three blocks, these three building, these three, and it's funny because, as little kids, we have blocks and they have letters on them. And so the letters A, whatever, C, E, A. And how do you play with those and having all the other blocks? And even with 7 blocks, just how much you can create. And so from this conversation, I have it to go back and to use everything that I have to go back to what was that first spirit of joy
Mm.
and of all the arts, access to every art, dance, music, food creation out of mud, whatever. To
Yeah.
know that that opportunity is still there, and start practicing the freedom of that with little tiny things to practice. By practice, taking on a practice of, through the fundamentals, meaning you take on something like this to let it get to you. At the end, it may end up like that is this anyway.
Yeah, and it may not. It may just stay as
Right.
simple as it was in the
That's right.
beginning.
Right.
But one of the things that I really thank you, Jane, for offering the labyrinth image, because part of what I want to hold on to is that I can do a practice when I have the energy to do it. And just like last night, it wasn't on my calendar, it wasn't on my schedule. I was going to do this practice. But because I do have practices and I do was in the mindset for the challenge, it occurred to me spontaneously in the moment, okay, just sit down and do this, you know? And it wasn't a big deal. It wasn't a big, it wasn't like an ego driven control. I'm going to do it. It was really the prompting, I might say, of the muse, of the larger self. That's, just do this. This will actually help you. This will actually move you. And so I want to remember that, because I think when we enter into the spirit of the labyrinth, and we enter, I believe, into the spirit of moving with the muse, we don't know the next step, but we're willing to take the next step that emerges.
I love that. And as you were talking, Kathleen, I was like, oh my God, she's talking about what we said we were going to talk about today. I went back and I looked at it and it said, are you ready to move in with your muse? And you're talking about moving in and not having to make it a big deal, but actually you can do it at any moment. You know, do you feel like you have a long distance relationship? Do you have the muse? Are you feeling hopeless on Muse dating sites? What would it be like to live in constant connection, or knowing that you could make that connection at any moment, that you could reach in, out, and it didn't matter which direction you reached in. It is the reaching itself that is, and I'm really realizing this now as I realize that everything is a gesture, and so we can do that at any moment.
Right, right.
What a beautiful way to start. I have tingles from the conversation, as I often do. And I hope that everybody who listens to this and everybody who listens and tells their friends will join me and Kathleen for this journey this year of having that connection. You have your embodiment circles. I have the Hip Harp Academy. And for the first time ever, I'm opening up the first quarter of the year to anyone. You don't even have to be a harpist. You don't have to be a musician. It is about the fundamentals of creativity. And
just
where they take us. Yeah. And engaging.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Kathleen. I feel inspired by this. And thank you, Jane, so much for your comment, and for everybody else who watches this in real time and in the other real time in the replays. And I hope I see you in Meet Your Muse this weekend, and in the Vision Creativity 5-day challenge, and in the whole Creative Resonance Project. And Kathleen, so wonderful to meet with you every week. And starting next week, we're going to be talking about the strings of passion, the 7 principles that take you from creative impulse to creative resonance.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Kathleen. And thank you, everybody. We will see you next